So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Augustan age is also known as the age of reason. It is also known as the age of enlightenment. It is also known as age of Pope, Alexander Pope. So there are 3 to 4 names for this age: Augustan age, age of reason, age of enlightenment, age of Pope. So this age is known as age of enlightenment. So enlightenment is about basically the continuation of what was started in the restoration period, that things were precise, clear, and they were more scientific. So enlightenment had certain philosophers who had enlightened theories, and they influenced the people. Early philosophers who questioned society and shared new ideas were called. So people presenting radical ideas, they were called scholastics. So this was term phrase for them. The Enlightenment also begins to develop in consequence of the change brought by scientific revolution. So this is basically the beginning of the scientific revolution that we find in Great Britain afterwards. Thomas Hobbes was born and died in 1588 to 1667. So born in 1588 and died in 1679. So Thomas Hobbes was a philosopher and famous, known for his book Leviathan. So Leviathan was written by Thomas Hobbes. This is very important work by him. Leviathan is a name referred to a sea monster. एक बहुत बड़ा सी मॉन्स्टर है mythological जिसको Leviathan कहा जाता है. So he gave the same name to his book. John Locke was another philosopher of the Enlightened era. He was born in 1632 and died in 1704. Second treatise on civil government. It was written in 1689 and written by John Locke. So this is the most important work by Locke. Voltaire was born in 1694 and 1778. He is also very important literary figure. Voltaire is known for his Candide, which was written by him. This is very important work, and the writer is very important. Rousseau, you know him. So Rousseau was born in 1712 and died in 1778. The Social Contract by him was most famous work. So that was in 1762. All these people are important. The Social Contract was written by him. It is the most important work by Rousseau. So Johnson. So age, this may be divided into age of Pope and age of Johnson. So 2 ages were there. So it is first known as, like the first part may be termed as the age of Pope, and then afterwards the age of Johnson. The most prominent poet in the satirist of the English Augustan period is no doubt Alexander Pope. Pope was born in 1688 and died in 1744. 1688, I already told you, is very important year in the history because it was time of glorious revolution. An essay on criticism is written by Alexander Pope, and it was written in 1711. Rape of the Lock is a mock epic and satirical poem. So ये mock epic poem भी है और satirical poem भी है. So we have already discussed these in detail कि mock epic क्या होता है. आप में से जिसको ये बात नहीं समझ आएगी separately मुझसे पूछ ले, no issue. So Rape of the Lock is primarily a mock epic poem and also satirical poem. So it is a satire on 18th century women in particular and all community in general. So from 1712 to 14, this poem was written, The Rape of the Lock. It was written by Alexander Pope. The Dunciad is written by him again in 1728. He is one of the most epigrammatic of English poets. जैसा बेकन प्रोज राइटिंग में है, इस अलेक्जेंडर पोप अपनी पोइट्री में. Pope was Roman Catholic. So this is important about him because 1688 was the worst year for Catholics, जिसमें Protestants का रूल आ गया और ग्लोरियस रेवोल्यूशन आया. सो इसमें कैथोलिक्स को कोई जॉब्स नहीं मिलती थी. यानी कैथोलिक्स का रूल होगा तो प्रोटेस्टेंट्स को जॉब नहीं मिलती थी, वो पढ़ाई नहीं कर सकते थे, उनको कोई मरात नहीं मिलती थी. और जब प्रोटेस्टेंट्स का रूल होता तो कैथोलिक्स के साथ यही सलूक होता. सो ये प्रोटेस्टेंट्स का टाइम था. सो कैथोलिक्स जिसमें पोप था, इसको भी कोई जॉब्स या इसको कोई अच्छा स्कूल नहीं मिला पढ़ने को. Like these people could not even enter London, the capital city. So James II was succeeded by William and Mary. William, Mary जो थी, James I जिसका हमने अभी जिक्र किया, जैकोबाइट जो पोइट्री जिसके नाम पे थी, ये जैकोबियन पीरियड जो था. सो दैट जेम्स I, उसके बाद जो जेम्स II उसका जो बेटा था, जेम्स II की बेटी थी मैरी और उसका दामाद था विलियम. सो जेम्स II की रूल से तंग आके लोगों ने विलियम को हैनोवर से बुलाया. सो विलियम एंड हिज ओन लाइक विलियम्स वाइफ मैरी जो कि जेम्स II की बेटी भी थी, ये आए और इन्होंने अपने ससुर का तख्ता पलट दिया. सो why is it called a glorious revolution? Because bloodshed नहीं हुआ था. वहां से किंग लैंडेड विद हिज 15,000 आर्मी और यहाँ पे जेम्स II इंग्लैंड भाग गया, फ्रांस भाग गया इंग्लैंड से. सो ब्लडशेड के बगैर रूल चेंज हो गया. So Pope was suffering from a deformation. So उसका स्पाइनल इश्यूज थे और उसकी इन्फेक्शन, एक पॉट्स डिजीज थी उसकी, जिसकी वजह से उसकी हाइट इंक्रीज नहीं कर सकी ज्यादा. So he was merely 4 feet and 6 inches tall. Alexander Pope also wrote essay on criticism. Thomas Gray was another person, 1761 to 1771. Sorry, 1716 to 1771. Elegy written in a courtyard, country courtyard, 1751. It was by Thomas Gray. James Thomson was born and died in 1700 and died in 1748. Another important figure, like not important as Pope. The Seasons with the Castle of Indolence were written by James Thomson. Christopher Smart was born and died in 1722 to 1771. Juliet Agnew was written in 1939 by Christopher Smart. Thomas Percy was born in 1729 and died in 1811. Relics of Ancient English Poetry was written by Thomas Percy. John Dyer was born and died in, so he was born in 1699, 1757 was when he died. John Dyer is famous for his work, Gronger Hill. So this is important work of John Dyer. Robert Burns was born and died. So he was born in 1759 and 1796. So Burns is important. So after Pope, this is important person in this, like बाकी जिनका नाम लिया वो हैं लेकिन इतने important नहीं है. So Pope के बाद अगर कोई नाम इसमें important आ रहा है तो that is of Burns, no doubt. To a Mouse was a famous poem by Robert Burns. Again, The Holy Fair was also written by the same poet, Robert Burns. Matthew Prior, born in 1664, died in 1721. John Gay was born in 1685, died in 1732. Edward Young, 1638 to 1765. Daniel Defoe. So this is important in prose. So ये third important figure है इस age का. Daniel Defoe was born in 1660 and died in 1731. So he is most importantly known for his Robinson Crusoe. So Robinson Crusoe is the story of a person who is deserted on an island where he likely establishes his own living or like he manages with the situation. Then he has an influence on the people, the native people. He has a friend, a Negro, who's named as Friday because he met him on Friday. So it is about his survival there. So this is very important work, also picturized many times in movies, cartoons. Moll Flanders was another important work by Daniel Defoe. Then next most important figure is Swift, who was also a friend of Alexander Pope. So he was born in 1667 and died in 1745. He is famous for his Gulliver's Travels, which is a fantasy tale for children and a bitter satire on humanity. So that was written in 1726. It was by Swift. It is a bitter satire, and for this, Swift is alleged as being a misanthrope. Like misanthrope is a person who hates or detests humanity, abhors humanity. So he was alleged as misanthropist. A Tale of Tub is another important work by Jonathan Swift. So A Tale of Tub was written by him, and it was portrayed in his urination scene in Gulliver's Travels on Queen's Palace. So it was a satire on religion. So for this, he was imprisoned, जेल जाना पड़ा इसको, Tower of London, वहाँ पे ये बंद हुआ. Battle of Books is another satirical work by Jonathan Swift. ये भी बहुत important है इसका काम. Samuel Johnson is also very important. So this is the age of Johnson, which is starting now. Age of Pope थी पहले, फिर age of Johnson आ गई. So this is the age of the initiation of novels, beginning of novels, predominantly by Johnson himself, who was born in 1709 and died in 1784. A Dictionary of English Language was written by Johnson. So Johnson was a playwright, poet, essayist, moralist, a biographer, lexicographer, both कुछ था ये. William Blake was born and died. So he was born in 1757 and died in 1827. So this like playwright ko, sorry, essayist ko main novelist kiya gaya. So this was the time of his writing the powerful essays. William Blake is famous for his songs of innocence and experience. So innocence and experience ki jo songs hain iske, if you read the book, the poem Chimney Sweeper, so would uski innocence mein bhi likhi gayi or songs of experience mein bhi. So we find a difference in the change or difference in the thought of the poet in both Chimney Sweepers. So ये दो बहुत important works हैं इसके. Edmund Burke was born and died. So he was born in 1729 and died in 1797. He was a politician and adherent of Whigs. Whigs or Tories, दो political parties थी, तो Burke Whigs की तरफ था. Burke was famous for his reflections on the revolution in France. He was an Irish statesman and a philosopher. So philosopher at the same time. So Samuel Richardson, he was the pioneer of the novels. He was born in 1689 and 1761. So Samuel Richardson happens to be crowned for the initiation of novels. He was the person who started writing novels in England or in English literature. So he's called the pioneer of it. Samuel Richardson wrote the first true English novel. Like उससे पहले novels थे, लेकिन they were more in prose forms, जिसमें Robinson Crusoe कह लें या like Gulliver's Travels. So they were more prose forms. They were more non-fiction. So this was first narrative, which was the true English novel. So he wrote Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded. So it was a secondary or alternate name. Henry Fielding was another person who contributed to writings of novel. He was born in 1707 and died in 1754. So Henry Fielding was also a major figure of novels, or beginning of novel. He wrote The History of Tom Jones, a foundling. So it was written by Henry Fielding in 1749. Joseph Andrews by Henry Fielding is based on. So it is based on Pamela by Richardson. Samuel Richardson ने Pamela लिखा first true novel. So उसे किसी हद तक imitate किया गया in a comic way by by Henry Fielding and his Joseph Andrews. Adam Smith, the famous person who wrote about philosophy, science, was born in 1723 and died in 1790. He's famous for his Wealth of Nations, very important work by him. Richard Brinsley Sheridan. So he was born in 1751 and 1816. He was also writing about the comedy of manners plays. So The School for Scandal in 1777 is very important work and a very important satire on the upper class society of England, in which he talks about the norms, the moral values that were left there, or the way we would call them immoral rather, or what kind of attitude they were having. So all those things are satirically presented in The School of Scandal by Sheridan. So it is a comedy of manner play. The Rivals by Richard Sheridan was published in 1775, based on the same philosophy. Samuel Johnson also wrote, like Samuel Johnson is the one about whom this age is named. So he wrote a reactionary essays on Boswell's Life of Johnson, maker of the Great Dictionary, The Vanity of Human Wishes, periodical essays, Russell's Prince of Abyssinia. Richard Steele was another figure who wrote The Funeral in 1701. Kolekeba was writing Love's Last Shift in 1696. Oliver Goldsmith, he wrote The Good-Natured Man, or She Stoops to Conquer. So She Stoops to Conquer is about the class tension. She Stoops to Conquer is important work, and Oliver Goldsmith is important figure. The Beggar's Opera 1728 and Eccles were famous works of John Gay. Defoe's other writings include these: Memoirs of Cavalier, Captain Singleton, like all these. Samuel Richardson also wrote Clarissa from 1747 to 48. So Clarissa is another important work by Richardson, the novelist. Shamila was another novel by Henry Fielding. So Shamila is basically based on the same concept of Pamela and Joseph Andrews. So it is also a mix and match between these two works. Shamila happens to be somewhere between Pamela by Richardson and Joseph Andrews by Henry Fielding. So this was the Augustan age, divided into two segments known as the Age of Johnson, which was later age, and the first age, the age of Alexander Pope.